All right, we'll call the, what was that? Oh, yeah, that's there for posterity. We'll call the meeting to order, and Becky, will you call the roll?
Sure. Jim Sheenline,
Here,
Mike Book, Tom Kitson.
and Mike will be here presently, so.
Okay,
Yep, sorry, Mike.
okay. Larry Meany, Tim Bivens, Nancy Naylor.
Present. Yeah, and Nancy's in Springfield, so we'll be very shorthanded here for a few minutes until Mike gets here, and then we'll be at full strength. So we've got approval for minutes from the budget hearing from last night. Everybody get a chance to look at those. Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, motion to approve the minutes from last night, moved by Bivens, second by Kitson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried. And all right, we've got old business, ongoing budget discussions and decisions. Is there any discussion about what we've talked about from Thursday or last night that you guys want to bring up before we get started? Paul, do you have anything for us before we get going on
I do not.
courts? Okay.
No.
All right, very good. I had to remember that I had to turn around to look at you. I don't know. At some point, I'm going to bring you up here so I don't have to do this. But you're fine at the moment.
I just need power.
Yep, we'll get you power.
All right.
All right. Well, good morning, all. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it. And Jackie, do you have a preference of how you want to, who you want going first and all that, or how you want to proceed?
So you gotta have a microphone, excuse me, sorry. You gotta get it closer.
So, so we've got your, we went over Thursday, we went over your budget requests.
Okay.
And everything, of course, as always, looks right in order and nothing really outliers. But here's our issue is we've got, we have some real challenges this year. I mean, it sounds like a broken record every year. The last year wasn't, last 2 years, I guess, has not been as tight as it had been in the past. But now that the federal dollars have kind of washed through, we're really looking ahead and at the needs of, the maintenance department and the capital projects we have going on across the street. As you're very much aware of what we've got going on, we're looking at what we can get through with this year's budget and also how that's going to look as we move forward the next several years. So I guess what we should do is have a discussion on if there's anything that you have for us that you want to point out and that this is true. I'm not talking just to Jackie. I'm basically talking to everybody. Any points in your general budgets that you could point to that we would need information on, and then I think once again, now that Safety Act is law now and not a question mark, I think we need to go over that again of what we think we're going to see with the effects. The unfortunate thing, in my view, I kind of almost wish the dang thing had been gone ahead and been enacted last year, because we'd be sitting here now having a year underneath our belts and not speculating, because I know it's going to be another year of speculation. What do you guys think is going to happen?
Well, and I guess
So-
that would be, I'm going to lead off by updating you on that issue.
Yep.
And then each department head, they can tell you how that's going to affect their office. As you just alluded to, the Safety Act, the Supreme Court found was constitutional. They delayed implementation until September 18th. So on September 18th, it goes into effect. The impact on the court system, it's a significant impact on how we handle criminal court. It's going to affect the state's attorney's office, the public defender's office, the probation department, the clerk's office. just as much as it affects the judges. You don't worry about our salaries because we're state employees, so we already are on call 24/7. But it will impact the time and resources of each of those departments. I don't know, and they will not know for a while now how the body cam footage impacts their time, because they're going to have personnel to review that. The time and effort put into place from the state's attorney's office to hand that over to the public defender and private attorneys, how much time the public defenders will have to spend with their clients going through that body cam footage. I mean, that's just a very, what I would say, insignificant part of the entire bill, but it's significant in the time and resources. For court operations, the big question for everyone was weekend court. And, that was the dirty phrase, don't say weekend court. There are large circuits in the state that have had weekend court for years. It doesn't really affect them. They already do it. The smaller jurisdictions such as ours and all the counties that are in our circuit, we don't hold weekend court. We have on-call judges on the weekend. We have on-call state's attorneys. We handle things through emails and signing orders and sending them to the jail. Now, we don't open up the court building and proceed in that fashion. Right now, there's an ambiguity in the law on whether we have to have weekend court. There are many counties in the state that are taking the position that it's not required as written now. And that's what I'm going to follow. We're not going to have what we would consider a traditional weekend court until either the legislation is cleaned up, which I anticipate will happen, but it's not happened yet, or a higher court comes down and says, you're doing this all wrong, you have to have weekend court. That will play out in the court system unless the legislature comes through and passes a cleanup bill saying that they intended to include weekends. There still is going to be some things that the state's attorney, and we just had a meeting at 8 a.m. this morning just to discuss the Safety Act, all the department heads. And even though I'm saying we're not having weekend court, there are still things we're going to have to do on the weekend, as we already do, but there's some additional things. I am going to have to pull in probably the public defender on the weekends, not into the court building, but involve them in reviewing documents and proposals and bond conditions and seeing if we reach agreements, so that we don't have someone unnecessarily sitting in jail until court opens on Monday. We will need to address those matters. So they're still going to be involved. We're working through the bill still. As Jim stated, we were working towards it going into effect in January. It was delayed. Honestly, I set it aside and let it collect dust for the last 6 months. And now we're dusting it off and we're working through it again. And we've met, this is our second time we've met. We're meeting again next week. We're diligently working on how to implement this. And we'll continue to work on that. There may be some technology needs some of the departments need in order to implement some of the weekend stuff, since we're not having court. And I'll let them talk about that. I'm not familiar with everyone's needs. We've been fortunate the last couple of years. I know you've seen it, that the state had technology grants that we utilized, and we got a lot of money over the last 2 years from the state to upgrade some of the technology over at the courthouse. I was hopeful they'd come out with another one, because you always come up with ideas after you've submitted your requests, because I think there's some other things I now see that we could use, but I don't know that we're going to have any more money from the state for technology. Anything I missed? I'll wrap up and let them talk.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that update, Jackie. And it's got to be such a frustration for all you guys being held in limbo here, and of course life moves on, and the uncertainty has just been frustrating. I have no doubt.
I need to say this, follow up. We're not having weekend court now. I fully believe we're going to be required to have it sometime in the near future. I know there are some union negotiations going on in our circuit, and as a chief judge, I'm involved in those, and I have told my representative, make sure you're discussing weekend court for those union negotiations, because I fully believe it's going to be required. We're going to hold off as long as we can until they make us do it.
Sure.
That could be 60 days from now, that could be a year from now. I don't know what that will look like, but I anticipate it's going to happen. So, and I know Stacy's department's one of those that's going through union negotiations. That's something I've said, don't leave off the table, because we're going to have it. And you may not be aware, but her office handles our pretrial risk assessments that are critical for us to use when we're setting bond. So they are involved in, and could be involved in that weekend court aspect.
Okay, thank you.
So that brings
Stacy.
into the probation and the court services department. We are kind of, once the court process gets rolling, I guess more of the front end of it, where we would have a meeting and a discussion with that client while they're at the jail. We collect information, create a report, create a risk assessment. That gets filed with the clerk's office, sent to the PD, and sent to the state's attorney's office as well. So while there is no weekend court right now, that's great for us because that does not impact our office having to do any work outside of that Monday through Friday timeframe. The catch there, though, is just as Judge Ackert had mentioned, if and when that weekend court does come around, that's where it's going to be a concern for my office, and more so financially. I'm not quite sure how that is going to balance as far as having somebody in on a Saturday to do work. If there is we're in union negotiations right now. Their first union meeting takes place next week on August 10th. And I'm sure, just as Judge had mentioned, that's going to be a topic for discussion. So that's just something that's on our radar, and we can't predict what that's going to look like just yet, or as Judge had mentioned, when that's going to take place. So it's just something that is out there looming for us at this time. So the bright side from my office is there's no financial impact for the county to have to consider, but I think that's going to change as you get additional speakers here.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Stacy. Appreciate it. Amy?
Well, I wish I could follow up better with that, but I can't. It will financially impact my office with the 10% cash bail. On average, excuse me, the past 5 years, we brought in about $47,000 for that a year. So that's a big impact. Like Judge Ackert said, we were fortunate enough to get court technology grants the last couple of years. Maybe we will get that again. I will not know. We will not probably find out until about November, excuse me, I believe October, November, if that's possible. Yeah. So like I said, Judge said we're going into a plan. If we have weekend court, we'll have to, just go with it. Last year, I did mention it to my office. So they do know it's possibly coming, just not when. And I did allocate some overtime in the budget last year. So right now we're okay, but again, that could change depending on how this will all play out.
Okay. All right. Paul, could you pull it, because we had some questions on your request, Amy. Could you pull hers up?
On my numbers,
Yeah.
I can tell you the main changes were, well, obviously salary increases. We did change some juror certificates because we increased the juror mileage, and we are having more juries now. And I did increase postage. Postage always goes up a couple of times a year. One thing I did not have in there when I turned in my budget was I did not account for $5,000 for the chief deputy's wage adjustment. Is that what you're questioning?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think that was
That was one of
what,
okay.
Yeah, Wendy, you might, if you want to put it, that's that PDF that you'd put up on the screen if you want, or.
So once again, I'm going to transfer this to Becky. Becky, would you? So we're looking for Amy's budget. So if you're in the resource folder,
So I can tell you that other offices, they do have an additional wage increase for $5,000 added to the base pay for chief deputies only. My office doesn't have that. I think it's only fair to have that. So without opening up the contract, I reached out to my labor attorney who got in touch with the union representative. And they were going to agree to draft a memorandum of understanding between my office and the Teamsters, and that would provide this would not reopen the collective bargaining agreement or otherwise impact any other employees covered under that current one.
Because your cycle is,
Yes,
is
next year, so we'll be starting, yes.
Last night.
I do not have that memorandum signed yet by the union, but my labor attorney told me that they would agree to it. So if the county, agrees to that,
So on your salary, if, and we had talked about matching your chief deputy with the other chief
With-
deputies, so it'd be $5,000.
correct.
So we'd be adding $5,000 to your 377.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
there it is.
apologize, I didn't,
There, it's up on the board.
Yeah,
I didn't have any
wasn't-
answers at that time, so that's why I did not add that in there from the
Okay.
union. And so if that would be agreeable, if that could go into effect July 1st, if the board would agree to that. Of this year, not,
This
we're
year.
not going retroactive or anything like that. We'll start if that's agreeable.
Okay, and you're going to bring that to the finance committee?
Yes.
At regular meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
And I hope to have the memorandum of understanding by then.
Yeah, and that was, so 5 months, probably, $1,800 or something like that out of this year. Or,
We'll start at July 1 of this year. We're not going to go retroactive.
right.
So, yeah, I didn't do the math, but
Yeah, I was just doing a rough through. Okay. All right, was there anything else? Let's see, I think that was the only question
Yeah.
that we had in regards to,
Yeah, because the jury certificates, we realized you had to increase based on.
more
Right.
juries
Yeah,
and.
yeah, more, and you had an increase. We had not increased that mileage reimbursement in.
For years, many years.
Which we should have been watching that. So, yeah.
I
knew
think that was a
I-
1990s.
I knew that
figure.
was in there. So that, other than that, when I look at it, Jim, and I see like the health insurance FICA, and it plays along with salary. So any of those increases would play along with salary.
all right. The one thing that and we talked about this when we got together the other day, that you have that fund balance, and as much as you can, especially looking forward, we're going to have to draw that down.
Right.
So, have it kind of in your
Yeah, so-
mind that,
The circuit clerk, like an automation fund or even some of your other funds.
Court doc
that-
storage.
Yeah, where we could find a way to spend that down versus hitting the county general fund would be ideal.
Sure.
Okay.
Right.
There might be some legal aspects to that, but
And absolutely, because there are only, some of those funds are for specific spends, right?
right.
And we
So-
absolutely are staying with that. What we're saying though is if there was something, instead of going through the general, that could go through that fund, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and again, I mean, yes, that's possible. There might be legal aspects, but, again, we might be changing our case management system. You all know that as well, right?
Yep.
I mentioned that. If we're lucky, we might get another court grant and that could be paid for. If we're not, that's going to be a big issue too, but,
and
I
we're
don't
very much aware that's coming
think-
down the pike, and that's not going to be cheap.
yeah, and
But what Paul and I are saying is that as much as we can,
Right.
that we.
But I don't think 5,000 is unreasonable for pay for chief deputies. I mean, my chief deputy's been here over 25 years and she does a lot of stuff on the back end with the case management system daily.
Yep.
She doesn't even see court. I can't speak to other offices, but there's 12 employees in my office. She manages all them. So I don't think it's really unreasonable to.
And Bob and I didn't give you a hard no either.
I know,
So-
not, there wasn't a hard no, but
It was
So,
just-
yeah, there was just some-
We were challenging you to, if you can find a way, find a place that you can do that. Yeah, and $5,000 doesn't sound like much, but as we're going through things,
Understandable,
we're the $5,000 add up,
right.
as we go through the entire budget. So,
The court automation fund, we utilize a lot for some of the technology needs in the system because we can.
And the court doc.
And
I
the
mean,
court-
so they
and
might
court
have high
doc-
numbers.
So court document storage. So from the judicial side of it, there are many discussions when we have certain needs that we say, okay, that's one of the uses, and we'll go to Amy and say, hey, we need this, and we need to take it out of one of those funds.
Right.
So it is utilized, and I know you're aware of the case management system, and she's being very generous in saying may need to change. I don't see any way it cannot change, because Winnebago County is leaving that system has not kept up with our needs. And we've had it, I went to the initial training back in 2016. So we've had it in place 7 years. You would hope to get a longer life cycle out of it, but it's not unusual for it to be shorter. And just in that particular system, they're not keeping up with our needs, so we're missing a lot of things. And I know Stacy was forced to go to a different
and
system.
this is the challenge, because this isn't just an update with the system you're using.
No,
This
it's a
is
new
going to a
system.
whole new, different system.
It's a new system.
Did we, because when we talked about that, did you find out whether, what type of numbers we're looking at for that?
I'm in the process now. No,
All right.
I don't have anything.
No, that's fine. When you do, please
Well,
bring it to us.
And Amy and I'm sending Judge Klon, they're going to a technology conference in September.
Yes.
Right.
And that will be one of the things, is checking out the different vendors and what we can find that will work for us.
Right.
And then with the Safety Act and maybe the possibility of your bail reduction and your fee reduction, how does your automation fund get funded?
Well, Judge.
Well, that's through fines, fees, and costs.
Right.
And-
It's like
That's what I thought.
And this is one of those unintended consequences, I assume, but if someone's not posting bond, in the past, when they
Right.
posted bond, then we impose fines, fees, and costs. The majority of that gets paid out of the bond that's already posted, and then we try to collect the rest, right? Now we won't have that money,
Well,
and
I guess
collecting
that's-
might be a little more difficult.
I guess that was the point of my question, was to maybe help the finance team also understand some of these elected official funds are funded by the courts. If the courts can't pull that money in anymore, we may not have that fund in the future.
And right now, the numbers look good, pretty good. I think automation is lower than last year, but they look good. But, like I said, if Judge needs something and tells me to take it out of there, I do. I mean, I don't question, I can't, so I don't really want to spend it, and we want to keep it there until.
Right.
Because we're going to need it.
Yes,
It could wipe out both court automation and court doc storage for a new case management system.
Back on the chief deputy and is your chief deputy in the union?
Yes.
Okay, it is. Sheriff, is your chief deputy in the union? No. Do we know other
I know some other
departments that are in or out?
departments.
Yeah, the Teamsters Union, if you will, their chief deputy is in the union. And that would be like the circuit or the county clerk's office, the treasurer's office. Those employees are all union employees.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Amy? All right. Thanks, Amy.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Robert, good morning.
Hope everybody's doing well. Thanks for inviting us together. I think that worked pretty well last year. So Jim, like you said, the uncertainties of this have played a large role in how I've planned and how I've proposed. I mean, you deal with uncertainties every day in your career. In ours, we prefer to know what's going on.
And when I'm here, Bob, I really like to know in this
Right.
role.
Yeah. So I did my proposed budget based upon not knowing what the Supreme Court was going to do, though we all pretty much knew down to the number what they were going to do. But then how much time are they going to give us, once they do approve PFA? And they've given us less time than we thought. And it's turning out with the meetings that we've been having, not just in preparing toward the end of last year, but just these most recent meetings, that our responsibilities are going to be larger than initially thought. And then, of course, once body cameras come out, that's just going to make it exponentially that much more. But I'll start with some good news if you got my budget in front of you. The $30,000 legal services hasn't been utilized at this point because that was intended for once pretrial fairness went into place. Unfortunately for me, I can't find anybody to come in and take on those responsibilities that we intended to put those toward. And once again, it would fall on my staff. And it's something we're willing to assume. But like I said last year, I don't want to be here. I never supported this. It's just something that, the uncertainty is one thing, but just the overwhelming nature of it is another when we don't have the personnel. We all agreed last year that my successor, at least at some point, not in the not too distant future, is going to be a full-time public defender. And you'll see over in Ogle County, it's happened in recent years, and in Whiteside as well. And they've got 4 or 5 assistants underneath them. The nice part about a full-time public defender is that you're actually paying less for your department head once you consider the reimbursements from the state of Illinois. For example, a full-time public defender is going to make approximately $177,000, but the state's going to give you back $118,000, $120,000. Judge, do I have permission to talk about your budget a little bit?
So if you don't mind me interrupting.
Yeah, don't.
there,
I don't.
Bob. It typical of the state of Illinois is they tell you that we're going to reimburse you for that cost. And the thing of it is, it's a shell game. Because what they do is what the state has been shown to do is they pull it out of a different fund that goes into a formula that comes back to the counties. So it's really, yes, the state is reimbursing, but they're taking the money that would otherwise go into the formula that gets distributed to the municipalities and the counties. And so, it looks good for their end because they're saying, we're doing this for you, but at the same time, they're taking our money away.
Okay.
And so it's a fair statement what you said, but I just want to have you guys have it in your minds that, yes, it sounds good. It's just like the bill that was to fund increased salaries for the treasurers and all the other constitutional offices. We look at that as a shell game. So,
Okay.
anyway, but it's fair what you're saying.
When they started that, it was initially an unfunded mandate, and then it became funded. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised it's a shell game, but I wasn't aware that, the reimbursements were being taken somewhere else. So with a full-time public defender, and I'm not asking to become one, but I have considerations to keep in mind. Judge Ackert has what used to be under my budget, which is the contract attorney for misdemeanors and other overflow. And that attorney's earning approximately $37,000 annually. If I took on those responsibilities, which is what a full-time public defender would do, then that would be put back into the public defender's budget, subject to the reimbursement. I've never wanted to do that to the colleague that's handling those right now. That's never been my intention. But in a sense, it's almost run its course with me being part-time, that it's probably time for me to assume additional responsibilities along with pretrial fairness. And all I would be proposing, and I would probably submit an amended budget request because I didn't know about September 18th, but it'd be along the lines of what we're discussing. And that would be to take consideration about Judge Ackert's line item in that regard and bring it back to our office, but that's subject to our discussion here today and going forward. And then just don't make me full-time. I mean, I'm the one that loses on that proposition by not being full-time, but I don't want to close my door downtown since I've worked to keep that open for 27 years. And that's where I'm walking into in 3 years when I leave this position. So I just want to be able to have the ability to still do a contract, or I'm working every weekend. I mean, I work Saturdays and Sundays. It just depends on the clients that need to meet me and not miss work. So I just don't want to lose that opportunity.
Sure. So explain again let me follow
Sure.
what you're doing.
So with regard to the 30,000 in legal services, that's going to start being applied, but there's going to be quite a bit coming back at the end of this fiscal year. Because we'll apply that beginning September 18th on a prorated basis throughout the year to meet the needs of pretrial fairness. I think we're going to be most busy at the beginning of this because we're going to have people previously detained under current bond conditions and bond rules. And then we'll get a better view by the end of the year what it's going to look like for us going forward. And then it's leaving that there in my proposal should be sufficient to meet my staff needs moving forward, if that's the case. And then with regard to additional funds, which it's not additional, it's the same outlay that's proposed in Judge Ackert's budget, that would be applied toward making me more full-time, for lack of a better word. And as a result, I go to Stevenson County now, Whiteside, Ogle, Mount Carroll. I'd give up all that practice just so that I'd be here, because I'd be required to be here more often.
Okay, when you're talking about pulling that out of Judge Ackert's, you're talking on the contractual services?
That's what it was called under mine. Is that what it's still called? Do you see it up there? Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, do you got?
Yeah, if you're in the judges, there you go under Department 031. There's an independent contractual service, and then there's contractual service. So are you saying you'd pull a portion of that out of that, or the full? Yeah, right?
I need Bonnie to tell me which one of those is which.
Oh, okay.
As you know, right
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
I have one contractual employee that was under Bob's budget that I assumed that handles the misdemeanors. Then I have 3 others plus a guardian ad litem. I think I have a total of 5 contracted services. One of those would be coming out, and I don't recall specifically. I didn't bring the paperwork. I think he's at 36,000. He might be higher than that. I can't remember where I left him after last year. But he covers just misdemeanor cases right now.
So Judge, under the independent contractor services, so for the month of July, I see 5 different names.
That would be it then.
Okay, so one of those.
One of those would come out.
Okay,
If Bob was to assume those duties, that would
Okay.
come out.
okay. So it would be a portion, if you will, or 30-some thousand of that coming out of that independent. That's line 530201, which has like $168,000 budgeted. It's pretty much running on run rate there through July. It's got 108,000 in it, but you'd pull 30 out of that, move it up to the public defender's department, but net, we're not looking to increase the budget. It's a zero effect. It's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
I mean, that's what I take it. Bob, do you see the same thing? Yes, you're great. Okay. Okay.
Correct.
All right, very good. Okay.
What happens to the contract person? I mean, are they planning to not be with us anymore, or are we throwing somebody to the curb, or?
These were preliminary discussions Bob and I just had yesterday, so
Okay.
I haven't included that person in the conversation yet.
Okay, I thought maybe you already knew that they didn't want to continue or something.
No.
Okay, thank you.
No.
That individual's been told year after year, one of these days it's coming. But that individual, doesn't know about the changes with PFA. Hasn't been to any of the trainings or the requirements.
Okay.
All right.
Just, thank you.
Okay, very good. Any other questions for public defenders? Paul, do you have anything?
No.
If I could speak again, just to give a into the future look. Bob and I had some discussions yesterday of what I believe the office should look like once he retires. And he mentioned to you full-time public defender. I believe we absolutely have to go there in the future. There is, under the PFA, there was a fund created for public defenders, all counties outside of Cook County. They set aside $10 million. We don't know yet what the process is going to be for accessing any of those funds. I was at a chief judge meeting recently where it was discussed that the intent was that every county receives some of those funds, that it would not be a grant process, but that there would be an application. So we have the possibility to access some money. I just don't know what it looks like, and I can't tell you what kind of money. I know in my discussion with Bob also yesterday, he has one full-time secretary right now. I don't think that's sustainable. I think he's going to have another one, especially when all the body cam footage comes in. The one he has right now is out of the office a lot, handling other duties of his office. So there's no one there answering a phone and assisting with people walking in the door. They've been making it work. I just don't think it's sustainable. I think in the future, you're going to have another one. So just to give you a look into the crystal ball, I suppose.
In all those discussions, Jackie, and I'm sure you're doing this, but just to encourage, the message needs to be sent that as these mandates come down, the state has, our well is dry back home, and continued state mandates just don't work for us.
I get it.
Yeah,
I
know
say a lot.
it's a broken record, but
I say a lot
and they
about
don't-
what
yeah.
happens in our community, and the Cook County doesn't understand us.
Yes, they don't understand.
They
us.
don't understand. So, I don't think a lot of people understand how an actual courtroom operates and what's necessary. So there's a lot of great ideas that lack funds.
Correct. Yeah, appreciate that. Bob?
Along those lines, just a casual reminder that my office did have 2 full-time secretary support staff. And when our office manager retired and Nikki succeeded her, we did not replace Nikki. And that's probably coming up on, 7 or 8 years where, all that money has never been utilized toward an employee for our office, which we're proud of. I mean, we're proud of Nikki and how hard she's worked to assume the role of 2. And, but it is, I think Judge Ackert's right. I mean, she's going to have to get used to having company, which she's not going to like, but it's going to be handling the more menial work that she'd be wasting her time on if she's not helping us in the courtroom or showing defendants discovery at the jail. We utilize her for some pretty important stuff.
All right.
And Bob, take this from a finance guy, but this question is it possible that new person you guys may need could be part-time instead of full-time? I mean, you save in benefits, you save in salary, but if maybe it's a start as a part-time and develops full, but think about that too.
We discussed that as well, Judge Ackert and I, and it is possible.
Yeah.
It is possible. As long as the part-time, is half-time, as long as they're there enough that training them isn't a waste of time to where every time they come in, we've got to teach them again what they're doing,
True.
A part-timer who's committed to that, that's perfect job for me. I always wanted part-time work, didn't want to be here 40 hours a week.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you stay under 28 hours a week average, you basically can skip I'll call it the healthcare benefits, the IMRF benefits, those type of things that do cost money on top of salary that a lot of people don't see. So I absolutely understand what you're saying. Hey, you're unsustainable. So can we start it at a part-time? Just question.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other questions for Bob? Okay. Thanks, Bob. And one thing I just want to say to you guys is that you know, in the 5 years that I've served on finance committee, you know, how to put this, and Jackie, I think you'll appreciate this. For the county finances always look at the judge's area as you know, the judge gets what he or she wants, and can use that power of the judge to compel a county to spend money. And you know, I've never felt that way. You've run your office very efficiently, and you all have. And I just want to tell you thank you for that, and I appreciate it. I've never looked at the budget requests that I've seen in my 5 years as being unreasonable. So it's just that, as you understand, we have financial restrictions that we're dealing with, and we have to make those meet. So, but I do want to say thank you to all of you. So, having said that, now I've revved you guys up. So now, Charlie, it's your turn. Be on the hot seat.
Thanks for that. Like the judge and everybody else has been saying, there is a lot of speculation on what this will entail for the Pretrial Fairness Act and what we're going to be trying to overcome in implementation. There is still a lot of realistic expectations that go along with that as well. As the judge stated, we've been meeting quite a bit well before this, the years leading up to it, and we do have an idea. Even with me, as I have right now, is a handbook that I've put together that we've all been kind of going off of in terms of forms, in terms of what the implementation will look like. And it's an 83-page document that goes through what is going to be expected at each level: law enforcement, public defender's office, my office, the courts, probation, clerk's office, all of that. And when you look at that, what you're going to see is that there is going to be a substantial increase in the workload, at least for my office, public defender's office. There's going to be a substantial increase in court time that we're going to be spending. Each of these court appearances that we're going to be in front of, whether it be Judge Acker, Judge Field Draper, any of the judges over there, if there are conditions applied to somebody, if there is detention of an individual, we are going to spend a substantial amount of time going through making sure conditions are still appropriate, making sure that detention is still appropriate, and there has to be orders entered at each pretrial conference where that is done. So we're going to be preparing those orders. We're going to be preparing for any type of arguments that come along with that. So it is going to be a substantial increase, and that's not even touching on the body cam issues. That's not even touching upon what we're going to be doing for filing verified petitions to detain folks. So the biggest thing that you'll see in my budget is going to be just trying to retain the personnel that we have, because in my opinion, and no offense to Amy because she was in the office, but we have the best office that I've seen in years. And that's the biggest thing to me, is that we need to make sure that we can keep these people around to continue the work that we have been doing. So that's what you're going to see in mine, is the substantial increase. Everything else is pretty much status quo, but the personnel, you're going to see salaries increased. I think any one of the departments here today, or even outside of this room, when you talk about the assessor's office, county clerk's office, they would all tell you that I think our office has gone above and beyond trying to make sure that we do the best we can for representation for the county, as well as answering any of the questions that those departments may have. So that's my pitch to you, just to make sure that you understand that my goal from these budget hearings is to make sure that we can keep the people around that we do have. It has become increasingly difficult, as Judge Ackert said, to find attorneys around here. We have just become so blessed to have the ones that we do have, to have the staff that we have, to work in harmony that we are, and not have any type of the issues that we may see in other departments or other counties when it comes to personnel issues. So I'd like to continue that work. I'd like to make sure that we keep these folks where they are at right now, so they can continue to work the county.
Any questions for Charlie? Tim?
The body cam, when does that go into effect?
So we're legally required to have the body cams in effect by 2025. My understanding with the sheriff's office, as well as the Dixon Police Department, is it's coming either by the end of this year or the sheriff's office the next fiscal year.
Okay, just to go through yours, Charlie. Okay, the increase on your salary, the 197,436. Of course, that's part of the
States.
we'll continue to call it the state shell game. And but then the major increase is the basically 50,000 you're putting in for your full-time salaries.
Correct.
Okay.
You'll see a little bit of an increase in the salary for part-time, but that's to account for the increase of minimum wage.
Sure. And then the longevity, the 1,800, you put in $5,400 on longevity.
Correct. We've got a couple
That's-
people that are coming up on that.
Oh, okay.
Yep, the anniversaries.
Yep, gotcha. All right. Anybody have anything to further? Paul?
Charlie, I'm going to ask the same question I asked Bob with your staff. Is there a way?
Be careful, one of them I think you might know.
Hey,
Oh,
it's a
boy.
dog-eat-dog world out there, right? Is there a way to use part-time outside of what you're already doing? I know you do have a part-timer now, and as you need more people, right, for this new approach.
Again, that's going to be the
I don't think you can
speculation
do-
I have for it.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do right now is make the best of the situation of the people we do have.
Yeah, and I know you're short people right now
Correct.
too, in the sense of you've got one out on medical, I'll say, and one out on, yeah. So I mean, it's difficult on your office. What I'm looking for is, hey, I know I got to spend the money. How do I do it efficiently? And can I do it with part-time to help me save a little of it, right?
And what's hard on our end is, and I'm sure the same is probably true for Bob's, what's hard on our end is finding a good part-time worker that can do the type of work that we do and still get the benefit that we get out of them. If you get somebody that's just going to be doing clerical work, that's one thing, but to be able to put discovery together, to be able to have responses to motions that are on file, to do the type of legal work they have to do, it's going to be hard to find somebody for that amount of money.
Okay, fair statement.
Just like to speak up here a little bit. I think the general public and most people don't understand how much work goes through the state's attorney's office. And Tim, as being a former sheriff, you probably have a little more insight into it. But even as someone who's been practicing law for 31 years now myself, until I actually worked in the courthouse as a judge day in and day out, I had no idea the volume of work that goes through the state's attorney's office. And when you brought up part-time, I immediately was like, there is no way, no way.
I hear about
I'm
it.
surprised.
I hear about it every night.
Yeah, well, I'm actually, and your wife does a wonderful job, by the way. I'm actually surprised they can get done what they get done with the staff they have right now. It's amazing the amount of paperwork and just organizing things that they have to do. And Charlie's right, especially with respect to attorneys. He has a great office right now, and it's not easy to get attorneys right now. In general, it's really hard. That's statewide. It's really hard to get them to come to our area, even though you have NIU Law School just down the road, really. I've talked to the chief judge in DeKalb. He says he can't get attorneys from his own law school. They're not staying here. So we need to retain what we have. And as a board, the implications if you don't, there's always that civil lawsuit pending out there somewhere that could arise that we don't want to be involved in. So I applaud his office. They do a wonderful job. But the answer to the part-time question, at least from my perspective, is absolutely not.
Well, I appreciate that perspective, and I think that was well said. So, all right, anything else for Charlie? All right, well, thank you all for coming in. Very much appreciated, and hope we weren't too hard on you. And as we say, we appreciate what your offices do, and but we still have to ask the questions that we need to ask. So anyway, appreciate it. Thank you very much. You guys too. All right. We rolled through that fairly quickly.
Much faster than I thought. Would you like me to text Kathy Ferguson to come over a little earlier and we can
Sure.
wrap up a little sooner?
Yeah.
All right.
No, that'd be
I'll
great.
reach out to her.
Yeah, if you guys want to take a 5-minute break, we'll take a 5-minute break. Hmm? Yeah. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning.
All right. Beautiful day out. Was
Oh, it's
a
beautiful.
nice walk coming across.
It was a wonderful walk. Other than the siren, I didn't realize how loud it is outside.
Yeah, it's loud in here. All right. I'll let you just talk about what you want to talk about. Thanks for coming in. And I got to get to where you are. Where are you at? Paul, if you want to get her, you can have her up.
It's not going to be on that tab because she's going to be, there's a separate one for, yeah, there's a separate one for the house.
Oh, okay. Highway, there it is. Health fund.
And I can tell you already, we have a change due to a personnel change. So do you want me to just tell you about that and then we can
Sure.
submit to, or however you want to do that? So our
Yeah,
salary.
if there's any changes that you want to make in your original request, now's the time to do it.
Okay.
Yep.
Our salary full-time is going to be reduced to 856,326. And then our part-time line item would go up to 98.9. We,
Okay, so can you say that again?
sure, full-time 856,326
Okay,
and part-time 98.9. And this is because we have a full-time person, Laura Fassler, who left us after all these years. So she will be coming out of the full-time line item. And then we are just hiring a part-time person to do a portion of her job, and then the rest of the job we've redistributed. So that's why that changed.
Not to change or to interrupt your chain of thought, but if you'd been in this room earlier, you'd hear Paul saying every single time, every single person, could we not do that by part-time and maybe redistributing some things? So apparently Kathy already got your
Thank you,
memo.
Kathy.
yeah, you've made a friend over here.
Right.
And you stole his thunder.
Again, I'm from finance. I'm not here to make friends.
Yeah.
So I have not yet figured out, I think that will have a minor impact on our IMRF and our insurance because Laura was on insurance, but I
So,
haven't calculated.
Yeah, I
that
was gonna
yet.
say your part-timer, will they be eligible
No
for any?
benefits. They're only going to
Okay.
be working 15 hours a week.
Okay,
approximately.
great.
So that will be a savings. So how do you want to go about, Paul, do you want us to redo our budget and get it to you? I mean,
Yeah,
the
sure.
only changes obviously that we talked about.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, you're gonna, I can't remember, did she do the health insurance? And, because I think I had told her I had anticipated like a 4.5% increase in health
Oh.
insurance, but I can also help you guys with that as well. So if
Yeah,
you have.
I don't know that she included that.
Okay,
So-
so, with the reduction of a full-time person, obviously your health insurance, if that person was there, would come down a little bit. If they were not on your health insurance, then that wouldn't even affect that line.
She was.
Okay,
Mhm.
and then the other thing that would probably be affected, and it's a small, would be FICA and that, because you're gonna have some offset. So I can help Angel with that, okay? And I wrote down your changes here in my notes, so I can definitely get that into the system. I
Okay.
just want to confirm with her,
Sure.
okay?
Thank you so much.
And as far as if you want to, I mean, you have some, just zipping through your numbers here, Kathy, there's some things where you took up, because overall, you raised your budget. Now, this changes a little bit, probably, what, 25,000 or so, because you were 1,591,000 last year. Your request this year for this year's budget 1.7, almost 1.8.
Yeah, and I
So-
can tell you, I made a note of the revenue line items
Sure.
that increased, that impact that. We're getting a 30,000 increase in our local health protection grant. Long overdue and still woefully underfunded, but it definitely is appreciated. We're doing school physicals now. That's just a small, we just budgeted a small amount for that to see how they're going, but they seem to be going well. We got a small increase in our family case management grant, in our family planning grant. We have a new FDA grant that's 25,000. We have a Clear Win, which is a lead abatement grant for 25,000, although that's strictly spend it to remediate the problem and then get reimbursed. So that's really a wash. And then we have a new grant they call SIPA, which is Strengthening the Infrastructure for Public Health Administration. And we budgeted that at 70,000. It's a 5-year grant, but we just budgeted, for this year. So that kind of shows you the increases in our revenues. Any questions on any of those?
All right, yeah, okay. COVID-19. Okay, you took COVID down. That's reasonable. Oh, the sanitary evaluation fees. You took that from 22 down to 12. Is that because you're probably, it looks like you're probably going to be coming under budget?
Yeah, we just
On that
took where we
revenue.
were 6 months and then doubled it.
Okay.
So
And that, what is that?
those are well and septic inspections for home sales
Yeah.
by request.
Okay, so by request.
Yes, people can ask us to do them for a fee.
Okay, so that's different than actual new construction that are
Yes.
mandated.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
All right, very good. Protection. Okay. Okay. All right, let's move on to expenses.
Okay. So the bulk of that would be including the prior approved by the county salary increases.
Mhm.
Then we did add 80,000 to our program expense line item to accommodate the SIPA grant, because in order to get that, we have to spend. So, and then we upped our maintenance agreement a tiny bit, and we upped travel because we are back to doing in-person meetings and trainings and that kind of thing. So that's pretty much the increase there.
So, okay, so the one line item that stuck out to me was the programming line item. You took
Yeah,
that from.
program expenses, which we bumped up to accommodate the SIPA grant.
Oh, that's what
Yeah,
you were talking
mhm,
about. Okay,
mhm.
I'm sorry. And contractual services.
Yes, again, you know what? We increased that also to accommodate some SIPA funding, but I'm wondering if I'm gonna have to check on that, if we got ahead of ourselves and looked at more than the 70,000 for the first year.
Yeah, because I was going to say, there's 85,000
Yeah.
right there and 70,000 or 80,000. You got 160,000 right there
Yep.
of increase.
I'm gonna have to check on that. I bet that's what we did, unless there's something I can't. I know we based it on current spending, and then we also were looking at SIPA funding, but can I look into that and we get back to Paul, or? how-
Sure.
Okay,
Yep. Yeah. If there's adjustments that can be made. And I'll tell you the same thing that we told the judicial folks, Kathy, is that, as much as, and I've been here around for 5 years, so I've, this is my sixth budget, but I can't remember. Anyway, I think you guys you've been flexible. We've made some changes in the way we've handled your budget, and you guys have been accommodating for that, and I appreciate that. And I think you're going to see that, just so you know, you're going to see that again this year, where as far as us being able to carry fund balances to where they've been. I think when we looked at your numbers last year, I think we were at just shy of 800,000.
Or 950, something like that.
Or yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So we're probably, you're probably going to see that be reduced.
Okay, I
And-
figured out for, based on my expenses for FY '24, a 6-month balance would be 878,642-ish.
Yeah, right.
So-
So we'll probably, whether we'll be able to, the way you account it, of course, our perspective is that's we look at everything as one big pot.
Mhm, mhm.
And so that, that number is probably you're going to see and from your side of it, as you look at your department, you're going to see that number go down. And
My
it'll probably.
reserves, are you commenting on, what are your thoughts on the 6-month reserve as a,
Yeah,
goal.
so we have, it probably will be, we'll probably be drawing that. I'm going to say that it's probably going to be drawn lower than.
do you
So,
have a
and-
ballpark in mind?
We'll let you know because it's going to be, again, we look at this, we look at the county general as a whole and the whole county budget. So there's going to be some moving parts and that's probably going to be not until we get down to the end
Okay.
and not up front because there's going to be a lot of give and take as we go through. Just to give you an idea of where we were starting after all the departments came in with their requests, what we have between our where we have anticipated revenues right now and the budget requests from the different departments, we're running about $900,000 deficit right now. We've got to close that.
Mhm.
And so there's going to be a lot of give and take among the different funds, different, we're probably going to be looking at reducing some fund balances in places where we can. And we're going to be doing prudent things. We're not going to be getting crazy,
Mhm.
but there's going to be a lot of give and take.
So in terms of my board and passing the budget, I'm not gonna, often I send it over to them in September for our September meeting, but probably,
Oh, no, we'll have that.
oh, you'll have, okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
I thought
yeah.
you meant
We'll-
like,
No, because we don't have that kind of time
Okay.
ourselves. So no, we're probably going to have hard numbers to you probably by the end of the month. Okay? Is that reasonable to say, Paul?
I would think so. I would hope so anyway.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that would
Or
be
else
an,
we're going to.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
am I allowed to ask, what are some of the contributing factors to that 900,000 deficit?
For the most part, we have, with the state has already informed us that the personal property replacement tax is going to be substantially reduced. We're also anticipating that the numbers on state income tax revenue that we've been seeing and we were just talking about that. We've in the last 2 years, we've seen numbers like we've never seen before. That's non-sustainable. So we're trying to anticipate what we think will getting things back to trend line.
Mhm.
And also the increase, we didn't have any new property to speak of. We don't have those full numbers yet, but as soon as we have those numbers, but we're not anticipating, usually we anticipate a 2 to 3% increase in property taxes. We're probably going to be looking at 5. But that's of course again trend line, but we're always hoping to see new property come online. There hasn't been a lot of construction in the county, so our EAV is not going to be increased like what we were hoping. The zoning permit fees that have been a savior for us, especially 3-4 years ago, that was holding our budget together, that money's dried up. So it's just a multitude of things, Kathy, that is hitting us kind of all at the same time. And we have increases in salaries that have been baked in, same as yours, as we've got the same issues on our side of the house. And we've got union negotiations coming up. So all of those things combined is forcing our committee to really juggle and get challenged. And so as we get challenged, we have to challenge you guys. So we're kind of back to where, you know, we went through a couple of years where federal dollars flowed through and we were able to do some things. And I guess to also add, you know, because this affects directly you, is that we've got deferred maintenance issues, as you're aware, that going on across the street. So there's not the flexibility within our reserves like what we've had in, you know, in the recent past.
Sure.
Because there's things going on across the street that has to get done. I don't think you guys want to start wearing fur coats into the office.
Some of my
And-
girls have blankets downstairs.
So we're trying, you know,
Lying
we don't want anybody starting, you know, a fireplace, you know, or, so that's, you know, we've got maintenance issues that, and of course, every year that we push things back in regards to maintenance, you know, the costs end up going 30-40%. So there's things that we have to get done. So even though we may be showing a healthy fund balance, you know, then the general fund, the capital fund, that money really, in our view, is spent because those dollars, the HVAC system has to be upgraded and be set right across the street. And so there's, you know, we're talking $4 to $5 million for that. So anyway, lots of challenges, Kathy.
Yeah, no, I don't envy you.
Yep. So anyway, questions for Kathy and her budget? Okay. Paul, do you have anything for Kathy?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well,
She did. She
yeah,
answered
took
my
your
question.
thunder completely.
Man,
It
when
only
she
happened
made
within the
that
last
change.
few weeks too.
Yeah, no, she made that change and I was looking at the numbers. I'm like, wait a minute, she's going to go down. I thought maybe it was going to go up. So.
Right. Right.
Oh,
Okay, if
goodness.
there's no other questions, do you have anything for us?
I don't think so. Not yet.
All right, yep.
We'll see what news you have. for
Yeah,
me.
we'll see where we end up at the end of the month.
Right.
So anyway, but we'll keep you, I'm sure you and Paul will be
Yes,
talking and
yes.
we'll keep you all informed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming over.
So I told Dave Anderson between 10:30, quarter to 11. So we have a couple minutes. Can I go back to some conversation we had last night on social services? Just a couple updates I want to give you. Well, yes and no. I'm shaking my head.
And she was even doing that while I was in there bothering her, you know?
So actually, Becky and I were talking, every year I don't know if you even noticed, but that application that we ask them to fill out, we always ask them to bring in or send in also some financial information so that we have some financial background. Well, it turns out that some of them, let's take Amboy for example, put their explanation rather than on the application that you all saw, but put it on the financial side of things. And while I didn't get a chance to make copies for you all, I wanted to make you aware of a couple different things, starting with Amboy. So Amboy didn't have anything on their form, but attached to that were some financial information. And he does go over and talk about, this is largely used for social services. They have a big Christmas dinner event each year. 100 seniors attended last year. Activities include cards, bingo, and social activities at Christmas time. They actually go through the financial information to show why the $4,000 that we've been giving them is necessary to make their budget balance. I wish they would have had time to make copies for you so you could read this for yourself, but I wanted you to know that they did provide the information, albeit in their financials, not necessarily in their application. So with that said, I did not reach out to them because I felt like they did offer an explanation, albeit not in person. And so tell me how you would like to proceed. Do you want me to make copies for your consideration? I did reach out then. Don't you love it when I ask a question and I don't wait for you to respond, Jim? I do that all the time. Sorry.
Let's see, how many years have I worked with Wendy Ryerson?
Yes, exactly. He knows. He knows. I did, however, reach out to Village of Ashton. Again, this was their first request at $10,000. They did also provide some financials. And I will just note that I did email Tim Hennert, the current village mayor, to ask him to elaborate a little bit more. But in looking at their financials, I can tell you that annually it looks like they're making, or at least this year, they're budgeted to make a $25,000 interfund operating transfer to the Mills Petrie building. In other words, it looks to me like they are running short, and so they're pulling from other funds to support it. So that's probably what he's going to tell you. Nonetheless, I did email him and asked him to elaborate, but I wanted you to know there is some additional information that might have maybe given you guys a little bit of insight.
And that's significant if that's what's going on, because, a cursory look at what we saw last night, there was not a deficit.
Yeah. It's tough for us when we put this packet together because sometimes their financials goes on for pages and pages and we wade through, do you all want that copied and put together? It might be something that Becky and I talk about going forward as to, whether because by giving you that, you might have had what you needed last night. I didn't know it myself until I delved into it a little deeper this morning. Pawpaw, you asked me to reach out to, and I did. Pawpaw was asking or getting currently $1,000. They asked for $2,500. They, reiterated what they were looking for it for. I've asked them to elaborate on why the increase. Is it increased costs of services? Is it increased citizens taking advantage of the services? Are you adding additional services that you didn't before? Please help us understand. I haven't heard back from any of them, actually, Tom, although I did email them. Last but not least is the Lee County Council on Aging. Nobody was there last night, as you heard, Susan has difficulty with hearing. I have not reached out to her because upon a further conversation with Becky, she shared with me that in 2019, prior to my being the administrator, there was an executive session conversation about why the senior center still offers transportation services and we're not doing it through lots. I have yet to delve into that, but I didn't want to reach out blindly without knowing more information. So when Becky and I get a few minutes, we're going to go back to that and figure out what's going on there. And we might have some additional information for you there. So that's kind of where I'm at on the update of that.
Just so the committee knows, I was president at that meeting because I was the interlocking guy for lots ever since I came on the board. I remember being in the meeting. Kevin Carr was there. My recollection was that there was supposed to be a winding down of their transportation and transferring it over to lots. And there was a time period. I don't remember how that was all supposed to work, but I remember the meeting.
So the notes that I picked up, and I didn't have time this morning to look through them, but the notes that I picked up is they were going to basically become separate entities. The Hughes Resources was going to take over the dispatchers and the money aspect of it. But the last thing that I read before I came in here was that Lots was going to supply a driver too. But I thought they were going to split completely. Hughes was going to take over.
And maybe it was the dispatchers that I'm thinking of, or that my memory's kicking in, that
went to Hughes.
Yeah, that we were taking over the dispatching. Maybe that was it. I just can't remember.
So I was in the.
Well, there was something, I remember how it was split. They paid for certain amount of stuff.
I can pull those minutes up.
Yeah, yep, we do. Yeah, because it's a significant part of her ask to us.
So I just, before I reached out via email to her, I wanted to have my ducks a little bit more in a row, so I knew exactly what question I was asking. So I'll get back to you on that. I just wanted to give you that update.
Fair enough. Thank you.
With that said, I didn't have anyone else scheduled. Unless you have any other conversation or discussion you want to have, I'll turn.
Well, Hughes Resources, because all of the dispatchers are contractual employees. So we do pay Hughes Resources through Lots, meaning Lots sends in a claim and it goes through through their fund. So, but I don't know if the LCCOA has their own dispatchers as well. I mean, we wouldn't see that.
We'll pull it together and get back to you.
I know there was a reluctance, whatever it was that we did 4 years ago. I know there was some reticence from Susan's perspective, and I can't remember if that was the dispatcher's issue. Or I guess I was. In fact, I remember I happened to see a bus with the Lee County Council of Aging logo on it, and I was thinking, and I thought to myself, I thought we got rid of those. More to follow. Yeah, because he'd been finance chairman at the time. Yeah. Too many things to remember. Yeah, that's right. Well, he Oh, well, do you guys have any comments as far as our discussions this morning? But we can't even, here we got, and I have people that when I talk about the county has 12,000 acres, regulatory approval for solar right now there. I was talking to a guy the other day. It was, she was superintendent at Rivendell. Goes to our church. Come on, help me out. Why can't I say her name? She was superintendent over Riverdale School District. And goes to St. Pat's. Anyway, she was hitting me up over the solar farm over at Franklin Grove. And anyway, she was appalled when I told her that we had 12,000 acres, with permitting approval. Well, the thing of it is, are we going to talk about, we're in session right now, and there's nothing we're talking about that isn't public knowledge. I mean, I'm not saying anything out of school, but and it goes to your point. But the thing of it is, we've approved all this, and we're not seeing any revenue at all. And even if we were able to do something like what you're talking about doing, it wouldn't benefit us because we don't have anything constructed. The benefits, we're not seeing the benefits over the exercise that we've been doing for the past 3-4 years. And you know, some of that's, you know, we're not the only ones, but it's frustrating to me when I see, you know, when I fly down to Florida, you should see the arrays that I fly over. Casey, is it Casey, Georgia? Casey, Georgia. There's a huge setup there that's probably, you know, in the neighborhood of 4,000 acres. Every year, I see more and more the large arrays go up. So how come they're getting built? And we're not, and see, that wouldn't be PJ&M because that's south. But that's probably, but that's still. Yeah, no, they're held up as well. No, because they're not PJ&M. Yeah, what is the name of that? It starts with an M. Yeah, Mid-Continent. Yeah, yeah. And my understanding was that their queue was worse than PJ&M. Was what, yeah, yeah. Sure. I get, so I got that from Bill Bodine on staff in Bloomington for Illinois Farm Bureau, is who that's kind of his desk, is the renewable energy field. And he keeps track of all that's going on. And he was the one that told me that Mid-Continental was actually, their queue was worse than PJ&M. Yeah. So I read something that hit me as absolute. When you think about the scale of what we're dealing with, and when you talk about, especially as we talk about going to net zero or reduce carbon emissions and what which personally I think is a load of nonsense, but might as well tell the tide not to come in. In Texas alone. Okay, so Texas is going through a huge heat wave right now. The additional, I hope I get this said right, because I know enough just to be dangerous. The demand in the Houston area is 86,000 megawatts. So when you think about what to meet that demand. Okay, so South Dixon Solar, that's a 535 megawatt project. Think of how many of those projects we'd have to meet 86,000 megawatts of demand. And whether we do that by wind, solar, right now we're doing it mainly through natural gas. But the demand that we're dealing with is boggling.
Much is.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's nameplate. You know, we dealt with
Nothing.
yeah,
Nothing.
So it's
Nothing
like
to
your 100 million gallon
Nothing.
ethanol plant that never really truly
But we didn't
doesn't do
ever,
100 million
we didn't ever
Does
plan to
86.
fund capital the last 2 or 3 years as well. We just happened to be able to do that.
There's nothing to fund it.
Sorry.
Well, it is. It's And, we've tried to do that, as with I know for a long period of time and, we were at the forefront of trying to capture the renewable, the wind energy projects and trying to capture those, because I know there was other counties that their fees weren't even approaching what we were doing. And it didn't, I don't think we lost any projects over it,
Hey, guys, if you want to keep an open session, maybe we need to be talking in mics. Otherwise, we could close out and you can
Well,
have,
how long are we waiting?
Dave should be here any minute.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break and hopefully Mr. Anderson will be coming in.
So we're looking, Mr. Anderson's coming not for his budget hearing, but for the conversation about with you and Tim.
Right.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
So
Oh,
you don't
that's
need to
right.
take a break. You can
Don't need
just
to take a
adjourn.
break, just need to adjourn.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've got my head in this.
Different game.
This is a continuous meeting for me all day. And Tim, motion to adjourn, moved by Kitson, seconded by Book. All those in favor, Mr. Bivens? Aye. Aye. We have a unanimous decision to adjourn the meeting, Becky. And all those opposed, motion carried.